Welcome to the Pleasure of Doubt. My name is Brett, and this is my first video in my series, Why Your Online Discussions Suck and What to Do About it. In this first video, I'm going to describe what I think makes a discussion productive. And when I talk about a discussion, I'm talking about the types that are about ideas, intellectual, philosophical, moral, spiritual, religious, types of discussions that we see all over the internet, often resulting in unfruitful, unproductive, garbage fire type discussions, and basically a waste of time for all involved. Well, I shouldn't say a waste of time completely. They can be entertaining, and I'll admit myself to enjoying them at times, but if we want substantive, if we want substance, to work through issues, and to even potentially resolve differences, another tact is required. To that end, I've come up with 5 criteria, each that builds on the other. Now look, a lot of the time, when people have online arguments, they're just looking to one-up each other, trying to make the best points, often in a paint-by-numbers manner, giving the same exact lines they've repeated so many times before. People often seem to talk at each other, not to each other. It's not a collaborative process. They aren't really communicating. And if they aren't really communicating, then they probably aren't having a productive discussion. The end result is that they leave the discussion the same as they came in. This is what happens when you take an us versus them approach to discourse. What I'm suggesting is to treat the discussions as a collaborative process, the parties working through the issues together, learning from one another, exploring together. So we've got 5 criteria that I think that if you meet these criteria, when you leave the discussion, you can say, I've had a productive discussion. Criteria number 1, the parties leave better understanding one another. This is the first level of what I call productive discussion. If you leave the discussion and you can say you better understand the position of the other party, then pat yourself on the back. You've just had a productive discussion. Whatever else happens, you've achieved something real. You've connected with the other side. You've listened, you've engaged, well done. Even better if the other side also leaves having better understood you. Level 2, the parties are able to identify and zero in on where they disagree. Now, most arguments easily focus on areas of disagreement, but I find that parties often don't dig deep into the specific points of disagreement. Once you find that point, it's time to dig in. Really search out the crux of the disagreement. Often it can come down to a key point or two that should serve as the focal point for the discussion. Figure out where the real disagreement lies and dig deep. Push and prod at it. Explore all around it. Figure out what exactly is keeping the sides apart and what is preventing resolution. Sometimes doing this will reveal other, more fundamental areas that need to be discussed. Next level, most of the time, online arguments focus on areas of disagreement, and that makes sense. That's where the meat of the discussion should be. But I think it's also important to spend some time figuring out where you agree. We often lose track of those areas, forgetting about them. Sometimes the parties agree on more things than they disagree on, but this can get lost in the weeds. So acknowledge those areas where you agree, and don't be afraid to say, I agree with you on this, even though they're on the other side. Number 4, identifying areas of disagreement are important, but here's where the real work lies. So often, parties in online discourse quickly reach a point where they say, let's agree to disagree. I get it, and it can be frustrating. But so often, I've seen the parties give up the discussion right when, if they had pressed forward, they could have reached a breakthrough. I think when the parties get to that point, it can cause some cognitive dissonance. Breakthroughs can be like that because they often result in parties changing their positions. And that can be scary. So don't be afraid to push through. Sometimes this involves reframing the argument, coming at it from another angle, phrasing things in a different manner. Be willing to push through. Each layer you dig through makes the discussion more productive. Now, obviously, if the parties resolve the issue, that's the best scenario. Even if it's a partial resolution, I find that there's something deeply satisfying in reaching a resolution. It can be exhilarating, actually. In fact, I think each stage of these five layers bring a deep sense of satisfaction that is often missed from online discourse. Because to get through these layers, you really have to connect with the other person. You have to open yourself up to them and have them open themselves up to you. I've had people tell me after we've had a discussion that this was the first productive discussion they've ever had with someone on the internet. And they were surprised and delighted. I think there's a hunger for this kind of discourse that many people don't know they have until they've experienced it and participated in it. So the fifth level is the parties are able to reach a resolution or identify a legitimate impasse. Even a productive discussion, there comes a time when a resolution is not going to be forthcoming. When the parties have pushed through and are still apart, that's completely okay. Resolution isn't the only goal. If you've gotten to level 5, worked your way through the other 4, even without a resolution, you should be proud and feel great about your accomplishment. And I'll bet it changes your view of each other as well. Showing that we can communicate, really communicate, even while having a difference of opinion. That said, there are times where it's okay to just say, you know what, I think we've gone as far as we can with this. Maybe you want to try it again sometime. Again, reframing the arguments can help bring some kind of resolution. Or we can just say, you know, it's okay that we don't agree with one another. Okay, those are my 5 levels of what makes a productive discussion. In my next video, I'm going to go over specific techniques to help you achieve that goal. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. This is a new channel, so liking, subscribing, and sharing this video would really help. And please comment. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and happy discourse.